I paused for a moment, my hands and knees planted firmly on the creaky floorboards as my toes kept me from falling over. The dirty and worn rag paused with me, balled up between my right hand and the firm ground. I hated waxing the floors. It was the worst task of them all. My frustration built with every greasy stroke on the wooden floor, and then to top it all off, a splinter found its way through the cloth and wedged itself into the skin of my thumb. That's it. I was done. I stood up and looked down. The wax section didn't look any better than the unwaxed section. The only difference was that on one side you could slip and fall and hit your head, and on the other side you could safely walk. So I decided I was done. Honestly, I did that every day. Every task in my mind was dreadful, and every hour was just one closer to going home and into my beautiful bed. She would come in, give me another job, and then go out and do her own thing. She never sat down, and I never understood why. I never understood why she couldn't just take a second to relax and eat a lunch that didn't feel rushed or like it was taking up way too much sunlight. But she's the definition of not a moment to lose, and that slogan was diluted when it mixed in with my let's take a nap Spanish blood. So I got my tasks done and she got hers, and at the end of the day I said goodbye and thank you, and she, walking in the other direction, put up her waving hand and yelled a goodbye as her feet took her back into the vegetable garden. And that was that. The tires cracked on the summer driveway gravel. My mom stopped the car outside the gate, and I looked up at her with big, tired eyes, asking her not to let her make me wax the floors. My mom looked at me sympathetically and shook her head. It was my job, and it was out of her control, and so she watched from the driver's seat as I tied my shoes for about 3.5 minutes and sat with the door halfway open for about 25 seconds. Bye. I grumbled in a, "This is dumb, you know how much I want to go home" tone. Try to have fun. Tell Aunt Priscilla I say hi, and Jean. Tell Jean too. She smiled big and turned the car wheel all the way to the left, backed out, and drove away. Another summer, I whispered to myself and walked into the house. My whole family raved about my great Aunt Priscilla. Her intelligence, her knowledge with a range from anything medical to anything agricultural. Her ability to make any dying plant transform into the most exquisite life form you'd ever seen. They spoke of her insanely good cooking. They spoke of her endless love. But the summer before, all I had seen was a disorganized house full of plant magazines, a billion antique knickknacks, and a woman running around wearing a shirt covered in dirt from one of the gardens, and a blue bandana holding back her gray hair. The next day, she helped me with weeding the beets. I started at the far side, nearest to the blueberries, and with 25 feet in between us, she started nearest to the garden gate. We didn't really talk in the beginning, except for when she reminded me to be careful not to pull the beet plant itself. At 15 feet, we started talking about school. 10, my worries about my new responsibilities as prefect for the coming year. 5, my boyfriend that she didn't know about until now. Finished. Do you want to come with me to cut flowers for the bouquet I have to make? Yeah, I do. We meandered with the aim of finding flowers we thought were pretty.
And the birds will sing our song in Halcyon.
I couldn't leave. I couldn't text my mom to tell her to pick me up, so instead I called to ask her to bring me clothes and my book. My bones fell onto the bed. I'd never been in a bed so comfortable. I looked up and saw my reflection in the skylight window, backed up by a dark sky and a few stars. She taught me everything she remembered. Everything her, and I quote, "stupid cancer medicine that saves my life but costs me $1 million a day," didn't force her to forget. I watched as every animal lived for her, and every plant was perfectly taken care of. She made me want to learn all of it. And then I saw her, this person that I was always told I knew because we shared blood. But they lied because I was there when we changed from strangers to friends. Her mind was impressive, and I could see that she loved me. I went out the front door, and the gravel crackled under my worn sneakers as I walked toward her and the stranger at the farm stand who came to buy tomatoes. But they weren't talking about tomatoes. It saves my life every day. It's expensive, but it saves my life, she said simply. I smiled at the two of them, pretended to grab something, heard her proudly tell the stranger that I was her grandniece, and walked back through the gate and into her kingdom with my eyes full of tears. I walked fast so they had no chance of seeing. But I cried and looked around as the soft golden light of the evening covered everything that lived for her, yet she'd almost died the fall before. The possibility overwhelmed my brain and had moisture pouring down my face, and I hid myself in the forest of the pole beans. It wasn't fair because we laughed in the car and we contemplated the future of the environment together. It wasn't fair because we piled firewood and we baked bread together. And still there was a sickness inside of her that could take it all away. And that couldn't be that. That couldn't just end it. So I stayed the summer, and we walked through the acres of woods with the dogs and the goats in search of the opening of the North Meadow.
Don't be shy, just let your feelings roll on by. Don't wear fear, or nobody will know you're there.
My shorter legs worked hard to keep up with her, and she never stopped and waited for me. But I loved it. We got lost in the gardens for hours and spoke of her past and my future, and every now and then, I waxed her floors. She let me sleep in, but when my eyes opened every morning to see the August rain clouds or the hot, muggy skies, I couldn't help but think that there was not a moment to lose.
You know love is better than a song. Love is where all of us belong.
I knew that the summer would end and I would have to leave and go back to my teenager life. Priscilla knew it too. And when we said goodbye, I wasn't going to race out of the driveway repelled by challenging tasks and unappealing jobs. I wasn't going to simply wave my hand and say thank you when the summer came to a close. I thought about how I'd give her a big hug, tell her I love her, and thank her for not just giving me a job that allowed me to go to school, but thank her for the company, for the learning, for the talking, and for the silence. It scared me to think that I wouldn't be with her every day. Her life and her being had changed in my eyes from an icon admired by others to a person understood by me. I don't know if it was just a change that I made. Perhaps I was more observant and more curious to her life and her memories. Or if it was she that slowed down in between loading bales of hay just enough to tell me a story from her past. But I honestly think that it was a friendship that was idle for years, waiting for just the right moment, just the right summer, to fall into place.
On by, on by, on by, on by.